In today's session, I am going to solve and analyze the verified ISC specimen question paper Literature in English for the session 2023. I am going to focus on section A carrying 20 marks. Section A is compulsory. You will have to attempt all questions. Section A, 20 marks. Question 1. Choose the correct options for the following questions. You will get 10 questions, 4 options for each question. Analyze, eliminate and choose. What is Ferdinand doing at the beginning of Act 3, Scene 1? Let us quickly read the options. Option A, cursing Prospero. Option B, gathering wood. Option C, planning to escape, or option D, sighing deeply. If I read the text, I will see that in the beginning of Act 3, Scene 1, Ferdinand is gathering wood. It's option B. And Prospero, it is Prospero who has ordered Ferdinand to carry wood. Some thousands of these logs he must remove and also pile the logs of wood. Question 2. What is Ferdinand willing to become in Act 3, Scene 1 of The Tempest? King of Naples, a patient logman, her beloved, or a traitor to Prospero? The right answer is option B, a patient logman. Lines 66-67. To make me slave to it, and for your sake, for Miranda's sake, am I this patient logman. In the mask scene, whom does Iris tell Ceres not to be afraid of? Option A, Dis. Dis is the Greek name for Pluto, god of the underworld. Cupid, the son of Venus, is Cupid. Juno, the queen of the gods. Option C, or Venus. Option D, Venus, the goddess of love. The right answer is option D, Venus. Where had Ariel confined the 3 men of sin in the beginning of Act 5? In Caliban's cave, in the wrecked ship, in the line grove, or in Prospero's cave? The right answer is option C, in the line grove. Question 5 now. What are we told about Louis Maillard right at the beginning of the short story, The Story of an Hour? She is proud, she is lonely, she has a weak heart, or she cannot tolerate noise. The right answer is The Story of an Hour, the very first line. It's Mrs. Maillard has a weak heart. Option C is the right answer. In the short story To Build a Fire, who advises the man not to travel alone in the cold weather? The old-timer at Sulphur Creek, his mates, another traveler, or his dog? The old-timer had been very serious in laying down the law that no man must travel alone in the Klondike after 50 below. So this was the advice of the old-timer at Sulphur Creek. It's option A. 7. In the short story, The Singing Lesson, what did Mary Beasley give Miss Meadows as the latter entered the music hall? Latter, it's Miss Meadows. Her music books, a yellow rose, a yellow chrysanthemum, or a letter from Basil? Again, C is the right answer, a yellow chrysanthemum. Learn the symbolic significance of the yellow chrysanthemum in the story. Question 8 now. In the poem Crossing the Bar, which voyage is the poet referring to? The voyage of discovery, the voyage from life to death, the voyage of self-discovery, or the voyage of the imagination? The right answer is option B, the voyage from life to death, crossing the bar. What does the word coppice mean in the poem The Darkling Thrush? Grassland, dense forest, woods, or trees? The right answer is woods. Coppice and the synonym is, the most appropriate word here is woods. It's option C. Question 10. We are the music makers. Where are the creative people usually found? Palaces, in crowded cities, near streams and sea breakers, or markets? The right answer is near streams and sea breakers. And now the most challenging and interesting section of the question paper. Question 2. Complete the following sentences by providing a reason for each. 10 questions, 10 marks. 10 into 1. Therefore, write crisp, short and to the point reasons. All the key words must be there in your reason, but write as briefly as possible. Question 1. In Act 3, Scene 1 of The Tempest, Miranda disobeyed her father and crept out to meet Ferdinand because. You will have to state a valid reason for this according to the text. My answer is, in Act 3, Scene 1 of The Tempest, Miranda disobeyed her father and crept out to meet Ferdinand because she did not want him to work hard and offered to help him so that he could take rest. Since the question is in past tense, I have used the past tense in order to finish the answer. She did not want him to work hard. This is a key aspect of this reason, and offered to help him. Another key area, so that he could take rest. The word rest is important. You need to mention all key elements in your reason to complete the sentence. Question 2, very quickly. At the end of Act 3 of The Tempest, Prospero is not surprised at the love that has bloomed between Miranda and Ferdinand because. Complete the sentence now. Because Prospero used his magic to manipulate and make Ferdinand and Miranda fall in love. This is Prospero's plan, and he has used his magic in order to make Ferdinand and Miranda fall in love. In Act 3, Scene 2 of The Tempest, Caliban is annoyed with Trinculo because dash. Why? Because Trinculo, who is baffled by Caliban's worship of Stephano, mocks Caliban and calls him a liar, ridicules Caliban and calls him a liar. This is the specific reason according to the text. Question 5. In Act 5 of The Tempest, Prospero embraces Alonso because. Why is it so? Act 5, Scene 1, lines 106 to 109. Behold, Sir King, the wrong Duke of Milan, Prospero, for more assurance that a living prince does now speak to thee, I embrace thy body. Ghosts and spirits are not susceptible to touch, but here, Prospero is not a ghost, he is not a spirit, but a living human being, and therefore, in Act 5 of The Tempest, Prospero embraces Alonso because he wants to prove to him that he is the actual Duke of Milan in person and not a spirit, in person. This is a key expression here, in person, a living human being and not a spirit. This is how you are going to write your reasons. My dear students, don't worry, we will practice a lot of such give reasons, questions and answers. In the short story, to build a fire, the man carried his lunch wrapped in a handkerchief next to his skin because. What is the reason? Because it was the only way to keep the biscuits from freezing in the severe cold conditions. I have written this from the text. Reading the text thoroughly is going to be the key to your success. It was the only way to keep the biscuits from freezing in the severe cold conditions. Finished. And you will get full marks. 6 now. In the short story, The Story of an Hour, Richards hurried to give the news of Bentley Mallard's death to Mrs. Mallard because he cared for Mrs. Mallard and wanted to forestall any less careful, less tender friend in bearing the sad news bluntly. He wanted to prevent someone else from bluntly revealing the news of her husband's premature and sudden death. In the short story, The Sound Machine, Mrs. Saunders turned and ran up the garden into her house because Mrs. Saunders, who had suspicions that her neighbor was a rather peculiar person, was convinced that he had gone completely crazy. Listening to his ideas and his theories, Mrs. Saunders was now convinced that he had gone completely crazy. Completely crazy, this expression is very important, and this is your reason for this answer. The next one, question 8. In the poem, The Darkling Thrush, all humankind had sought their household fires because, what is the specific reason? Because after roaming in the bleak, gloomy winter surroundings, they sought the warmth of their fireside. They sought the warmth of their fireside, the desolation, the bleakness of the surrounding, the twilight, the winter landscape, and because of this, they sought the warmth of their fireside. Next, question 9. In the poem Birches, the poet often dreams of going back to his childhood because to get a momentary respite from, because he wants to get a momentary respite from the adult world, childhood and adult world, the harsh reality of adult world. And the momentary respite phrase is very, very important because he does not want to go there permanently. He wants just a temporary, a momentary respite. The last one, question 10. In the poem, We Are the Music Makers, the poet declares that music makers are considered failures, losers, because they remain aloof from society, number 1, gain little by their pursuits in material terms, number 2, they are not interested in materialism, in hoarding wealth, and number 3, and are not in favor of acquiring power, pelf and fame. So this is the most appropriate reason for this question. Let me just read it once again. They remain aloof from society, gain little by their pursuits in material terms, and are not in favor of acquiring power, pelf and fame. The meaning of pelf is given. Just have a look. My dear students, I hope you will find this video really helpful. So do subscribe to our channel for more back-to-back materials.